Welcome, team, to Metal Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about about Austere, this new album, The Stillness of Dissolution, and more things related to the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking, how are you doing today, and how is the band during the last couple of years? Because the band is starting composed since 2023, a full road, 3 albums in 3 years.
I'm good, thanks, man. Look, yeah, I know that we've had 3 albums in 3 years released, but it's actually been 3 albums in 4 years. So I think we're not quite as fast because we recorded Corrosion of Hearts in 2021 when we first got back together, Mitch and I. So there was just a delay in releasing that. So we'd actually already finished Beneath the Threshold by the time Corrosion of Hearts came out. So we're sort of playing catch up at that point. So I mean, we've definitely been more creative now than we have in the last 20 years.
Okay, well, that's interesting to know. Well, and one thing that I'm talking about this one, because I remember I hear the band when you release the Corrosion of Hearts, your previous albums when you are more leaned down to the depressive stuff, so depressive black or this kind of stuff. But now the last two, especially from the Beneath the Threshold and this new album, the Stillness of Dissolution, you lean down to more melodic, or even you are playing more death metal than black metal. So if this decision to play more death metal stuff in your music, it was a conscious decision, or this was just the process of evolution of the band?
Yeah, I think to go take a step back, like when we were like did Austere the first time when we released the first 2 albums, depressive black metal didn't really exist yet. Like, I mean, of course there were bands that had that style, but there wasn't really a name for it until sort of after we had even ended. So we were just doing what we wanted back then. Like we weren't saying back, 15 years ago, oh, we want to do depressive black metal. It was just, for me personally, I wanted to combine like the black metal I loved, which was like the slower sort of stuff, more atmospheric stuff, with stuff like Sigur Rós and post rock and the sort of grandness of classical music even. So that's sort of what I wanted to do. And then when we started again with Corrosion of Hearts, we really thought we should do something sort of pick up where we left off with Till I Like Old Ashes. So I think that's why that album is closer to the other ones. But by the time we did Beneath the Threshold, we'd done our first shows. And I think we realized that like 15-minute songs with 2 riffs isn't really that good for live shows. So we made the decision then to sort of shorten the songs, make them more punchy, something we could possibly play live if we wanted. And then with the melodic death metal thing, I hear that a lot. We definitely didn't like make a conscious decision to go in that direction, but both of us love like old Amorphous and old In Flames and old Sentenced and all this kind of old Scandinavian 90s melodic death metal. So I think just naturally, when we shortened the songs down and we would sort of naturally moved in that direction a bit, and when the riffs and melodies are quite similar, I think, than we've always done. It's just that they're sort of presented in a different way now that gives it that kind of vibe. But yeah, I agree with you. But it wasn't a conscious decision, but it just sort of happened that way.
Okay, well, and the next question will go to this aspect, because when I hear this new album, The Stillness of Dissolution, and I hear another two bands from this year that in the beginning plays depressive black metal or this kind of music, but the latest album for these bands included Austere, included Hurricane from the Skies. All these 3 bands, and I cannot remember the other one, but I have here in my mind. I will remember in a few seconds. 3 bands that usually lean down to the melodic death metal from Finland. That's a curious thing. So I don't know why, but it's like a pattern that these bands started with a depressive black, and then they decide to play like melodic melodic death, melodic metal. So I don't know why. Could we say that is like the pattern that mostly when you try to like when you try to play melodic metal or in general depressive metal, the melodic stuff will be there all the time?
Yeah, look, I think maybe it's just that the Finnish bands did it so well that you naturally sort of start to sound like that. But I know what you mean about the new Harakiri album. It's really got that vibe with the chord progressions and the melodic guitars over the top and stuff. But I mean, they're friends of ours. We've toured together. I don't think it was a conscious decision for them either. It just sort of happened. And I think, yeah, when you decide to bring in like melody guitars and things, I think naturally it just gives it that vibe. And yeah, I don't know. It just sort of happens. But yeah, I think maybe because those classic Finnish albums are so good that, it's impossible not to be compared to them.
Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Now, well, so you said that the Corrosion of Hearts it was composed a years after of that, or a years before of that. Then Beneath the Threshold it was completely finished when the Corrosion of Hearts was released.
Yeah.
And when do you decide to start writing songs for the Still of Dissolution? It was when the Beneath the Threshold was fully composed, or last year? When exactly started the composition for this new one?
Yeah, so Beneath the Threshold was finished. Well, we finished it in 2023, but it was recorded in 2022. So we started The Stillness of Dissolution about the time that Beneath the Threshold was released. So sort of, I guess like March, April 2024. Um, and we started from scratch, like we didn't use leftover material or anything. So it started with Mitch, did a few demos at home for I think 2 songs and sent them over, and that kind of gave us, okay, so this is where we'll go with the album. But then I kind of thought pretty quickly, maybe this is a bit too far away from Austere. Like if the whole album is these rock songs, with really melodic, like Finnish style riffs. So I kind of said to Mitch, I think we need to write a few atmospheric songs. So it's still us. So we got together in July last year. We started recording, and we only had 3 songs done before we started to record them. So the other 3 we wrote in the studio, and yeah, I think it took about a month and a half to finish writing and to record it, and then we mixed it together. And then I was really lazy with mastering it, so I didn't end up mastering it until December or January. But I think that break was kind of good because it gave us a bit of time to go, oh, hang on, maybe we should kind of go and tweak a couple of things in the mix again. But yeah, so it was written almost a full 2 years after Beneath the Threshold was written, even though it was released 1 year apart.
Okay, 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 nice, nice. So now talking about more the history of the band, because the band this year it has will accomplish 20 years of existence because the band starts the career in 2005, but then you decide to break or you split up in 2010, 5 years later than the band was created, and then you decide to come back in 2021. So that's the information that we have here on will the biography of the band and more things. So, but what do you decide to first split up the band at 2010 and then come back in 2021? A curious thing, you decide to return the band when the pandemic is over the world.
Well, yeah, so okay, the reason we split up was we really only were active. So 2005, I guess, technically maybe that's when Mitch had the idea to sort of start Austere, but we didn't actually do anything until 2007. And we recorded Till I Like Old Ashes in 2009. So there was really only 2 years that Austere was active that first time around. We did both albums and both splits in a period of 24 months. And neither of us were happy with Till I Like Old Ashes. There was a lot of things that happened during the recording of it because we had very limited money for studio time, and we ran out of time and didn't get to do things we wanted to do with it. So neither of us were really happy with the album, and I think it just left a bad sort of taste in our mouths. And we'd split up the band. Like, it was quite a while before we put out a public statement in 2010. We'd already decided to end the band. So before we got any sort of popularity, the band was already over. Um, and we spoke sort of a few times over the years about sort of maybe let's try and do music together again and see what would happen. But it was the pandemic that made Austere sort of come back to life, because in Australia we had like crazy lockdowns where you couldn't go more than 5 kilometers from your house. You could only see one person from outside your house. And yeah, it was during this time that I moved back to Wollongong, where Mitch lived, after living away for 5 years. And one day he just sent me a message and he's like, "Oh, I've been writing some riffs in the Austere style." I said, "Well, do you want to try and get together and see if we can do anything with them," sort of thing. So at that time we couldn't even see each other because of the pandemic. So I just recorded some drums in my studio and sent them over. And he kind of put some riffs to the drums, and almost immediately it sounded like Austere again. And we just went, fuck. So you had to nominate people on a government website in Australia for who you could see. And we nominated each other, and we were the only people sort of we could see during that lockdown. And yeah, it was then that we did Corrosion. So sort of, yeah, August 2021.
Mm. Okay, okay. Now, well, since the beginning of the band, it was two pieces. There's no more members since the beginning of the band. Since you recorded the first album, Withering Illusions and Desolation, since that album, you all the time were two people involved in the creation of the composition, of the band, of the art, everything related with us. So why do you decide all the time just to be just two members in the band? Because that is a curious thing. Mostly all depressive band are or one man band or one just two. That's a curious thing. Since I start to hear this depressive black metal with Forgotten Tombs, because Fernandino started the band in at the ends of the 90s, and it was just him. Then
Yeah.
accomplished more people. Then either way with Silencer depressive black metal. Either way, just two people. Just with Natrak, it was the only one. So that's like a pattern. Just the depressive and the I don't know the post black metal all the time is just conformed by just one guy or just two guys.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. Personally, I don't like being in a band with like a lot of people, because I think to be a successful band, like with say 4 people, for example, everybody needs to have a say and everybody's ideas need to be heard, and this and that. And it's very rare to get 4 people whose ideas will work well together. So it can be a case that by adding a couple of people to the band and making it a full lineup, it'll actually make the music worse. So I think, yeah, one man and two bands or songwriting teams in general, I think work better. If you find 2 people that work well together and know how each other work and complement each other, I think it's much better. And I think that's not just for depressive black metal. I think that's for sort of any genre of music. But as for why it's big in depressive black metal, I guess it's just because people who play this music are usually weird and don't have a lot of friends. So they either can't find anyone for their band or just one guy who's just as weird as them. I don't know. But for us it works. We never even considered sort of getting anyone else in the band. It'll always just be session members for live shows, because we can do everything on the albums. We all play different instruments, so it's fine. We don't need anyone else, and I wouldn't want to bring anyone else in who might change sort of how we work or change the sound of the band or whatever.
Okay, 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 okay. Now, well, that's other question about this one. So, because you said it, no, many people or many people thinks that when you are in depressive black metal, you don't have friends, you have suicidal topics. I don't know why, but that's the thing related since the beginning. I don't know
Yeah.
what either. When I hear for the first time the name Auster, so I said, so that's a lonely people trying to play music. So that's a curious thing. Either way, you can see Harakiri for the Sky, Forgotten Tomb, Silencer. That kind of names are completely related with this kind of music. So for you, is there any, for example, is there any option that the depressive black metal calls a different way? So no, something more happier.
Look, I don't think Austere has ever been depressive black metal. Like,
Mhm,
like I mentioned before, like when we first started, that term didn't even exist. I think we've always had sort of we don't sing about positive things,
mhm,
but I think that's sort of just natural. I mean, right now I'm sitting here, I'm not depressed. I have been in the past, absolutely, but when I sit down to write lyrics, for example, it's never something positive because that's sort of the way music is the way I get out the dark things and the not so positive things. It's through music. Even if I was, the world's happiest person, I don't think the music I did would be happy just because I sort of I don't get inspired by joy as much as I do by sadness. And I think that's also why sad music and depressive music is a powerful thing. And I remember a quote by Australian country music artist Keith Urban, and he said, "Great art comes from great pain." And yeah, it's true. If you can channel that into music, it's powerful. And I mean, guys like Harakiri, who you mentioned, you meet them and they're big party guys. They're always up for a party and a good time, but their art is comes from a dark place, and it's because everybody has that inside of them. And I think, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but yeah.
No, 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 okay, okay, okay. So, well, one thing I always try to, you said it, is that the musicians try to, I don't know, evocate the surroundings, the feelings when you try to compose music, that's completely normal. And usually, I did noted one thing during the pandemic, one thing, because when the pandemic started at that moment, many people composed like some happy music. I don't know, thrash metal, black metal, heavy metal, a lot of metal. But when we are without the pandemic, the surroundings are a little depressive for a lot of people. But then, so do you think in the music, especially, the sensations are very important to create this kind of music or depressive stuff or melodic stuff?
Yeah, I think, look, as long as your music comes is real, like I don't I think it's always you'll be able to tell if someone is like super happy and their music is like depressive black metal, it will sound fake. And the same thing, if someone is doing pop music trying to be happy, it will sound fake. And that's during the pandemic and everyone's releasing these feel good songs. Oh, la la, we are all together, blah blah. It was all fake shit because you know it was people were trying to it was coming from a place nobody actually thought that. Everybody thought this is fucked,
Mhm.
and it was fake. And that's the most important thing in any music is to be real and for it to come from a real place. So
Mm. Okay, okay. Now let's talk about the composition. Let's talk about the composition process because one part that I said is that we relate the music with the feelings, with the sensation that you feel. So you feel a rip and you create the rip. But at the same time, when you create music, all the time the music is evolved with numbers. So three parts of riff, three parts of this scheme, and you create the sound, the you create versus chorus. That's all the time add related with the mathematical aspect. That's completely
mm.
normal. The mathematical and the sensations are there. And for you, as you are creating the music for Austerity, so For you, which is the most important thing when you create music? It is the feeling part, or it is the mathematical part?
So this is sort of, I think, why Mitch and I work well together, because for him it's pure feeling. Like he doesn't have any interest in music theory. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't think about how many times he plays a riff or anything. Whereas I'm the opposite. I know music theory. I'm very methodical in thinking. Like when I'm writing a song, I sort of picture graphics in my mind of what they should do, like the notation and everything. Um, but at the same time, you can't just do that, or you'll end up with very sterile sounding music. So you need to sort of be able to put that apart. But and at the other same time, I think people are used to hearing things that are familiar. Like if you play a riff 4 times and then go to the next riff, it sounds much more natural than playing that riff 5 times and going to the next section. That will sort of throw people off because they're used to hearing it 4 times. So I think it's sort of a combination. You do need to go off feel and just sort of let it come out when it feels right. But at the same time, be mindful of sort of this mathematical and methodical and aspect of music. But at the same time, music has no rules. You can do anything you want, and any rules that are there to be broken. So, you know, you shouldn't follow any formulas or any sort of set things. But just naturally, it's always in the back of my mind when writing music and writing songs.
Mm. Okay, okay. So now, well, so you play the drums on the album, obviously. You play the drums of this album, and now, as you can see, there's a lot of people. This all no, well, there's new musicians talking about the playing so well, technical, etc., etc. But with this new movement, there is another movement that is against to the rules in the music, as you said it, because the music doesn't have rules. You can
Yeah.
play as you want at the time that you want. There is no play, and mostly now new drummers try to play music with a metronome involved in recording process on the studio, because I read a lot of communications with the new drummers, and they say that is we don't record it with the metronome, we don't record it with a rehearsal. And or like the Beanie Apis told me one time, I am the metronome. No, I didn't. I will not use any. I never use metronome. I am the metronome for the band. So
Mm.
for this case, so what's your point of view about these new tendencies to try to return to the old stuff, to like the record in tapes and record it without metronome and all these kind of things?
I think it's cool only if it's real. Like the thing with all this, and there's been a whole revival in analog gear and tape and blah 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 in recent years, but it's all been people who weren't even alive when that happened the first time. So now, it can be argued that, yeah, metal, especially sort of in the from the late 90s through to the 2010s, did get too sterile. Everything to a metronome, everything, fixed in a computer, so it's perfect.
Mm,
And it does lose feel because of that. But at the same time, to have all these kids now going, oh, I'm not going to play to a metronome, blah, 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 and I'm going to record to tape. Um, it's like, well, why? You can play to a metronome, which will make everybody's life 1,000 times easier in the future, um, and just not fix it, not edit it in the computer, and it will still have a human feel and vibe. But at the same time, sometimes you want sections to slow down and speed up and stuff, which is good for music, and you lose that when everything's to a metronome. Personally, I would never record without a metronome. I mean, when we play live, we use backing tracks with the keyboards and stuff on them. So every time I ever play drums, it's to a metronome and has been for 25 years. So
mm,
for me, that's the thing. But yeah, there's no rules if you want to do it. But I think using tape nowadays is just making things way more difficult for yourself. If you're Foo Fighters or something and you have $1 million studio budget and you can go in there for 6 months, then yeah, fine. But why you would record on tape now, when everybody's going to listen to it on their phone anyway. So it's still no matter what, it's going to go through, the
The vision.
analog digital
Mhm.
conversion. So, you know, it is what it is. But I don't know. I nowadays I do like watching Instagram musicians and stuff. It's interesting. I like seeing sort of 30 years ago what was amazing is now like what 11-year-old kids are doing, and
Yeah.
like it's really cool. But I don't know. I At the end of the day, yeah, there's no rules in music, and people can do what they want. And if they want to record without a metronome, like early Maiden, with timing going all over the place, and then that's cool. If that's what they think is best for their music, then that's that's what's best for their music.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And other bands are now recording the music in just one take in the rehearsal. Everyone in just one take, like the Beatles.
Yeah,
That's
I think that's not, in my opinion, it's not the best option because there's always going to be someone making a mistake somewhere. So, like, I get it. Okay, play live, get the basic tracks down, but then you can always replace them and fix anything. But maybe some people think that loses a certain vibe or whatever, and maybe it does. I don't know, but it's that's not for me.
okay, okay, okay. Now returning to the now to the especially about the gigs, about more things related. What kind of plans do you have for this Austere and in this new album, the still of the solution, the stillness of the solution? What kind of plans do you have? You will involve in tours in Latin America, Europe, Asia, or you will present more videos, or perhaps you're already working on a new album. Who knows?
Not yet. We've spoken about sort of the direction we want to go on the next album, but I don't think we'll begin work on that until next year. We sort of want to break from writing and recording for a little while at least. Look, we just last month we just finished a European tour that was like a month long, and then we went back to Australia and did an Australian tour with, just a short one with 3 shows. Now we don't have anything until December. We're back in Europe for 5 or 6 shows then. Um, Latin America, I would love to do. We've sort of started to speak to a couple of promoters. I don't know a lot about sort of how things work there. I've had some friends who have played there and they've all said it's amazing and fantastic. So hopefully we can make that happen next year. But there's nothing sort of set yet. And the same for Asia. Honestly, I have no idea if we even anybody knows who Austere is in Asia. Like, well, I'm talking about East Asia, like China and Japan and stuff. But it'd be great if we could do I'd love to do a Chinese tour. That'd be amazing. I'd love to go to Kazakhstan and places like that. But yeah, we'll see. At the moment, all we have is the European tour in December.
Okay, okay, okay. So now other topic talking about now more a thing related that you say. So now you are two people, and now with the technology involved, you can play just two people in live shows. That's no that's no problem. In the 80s or 90s, just two people live. Yes, how difficult, a lot of difficulties, but the technology is not what it's not updated at that moment. So, but now we have a lot of tools to just you can use it in live to play two people and the situation. And as you can see now, a lot of producers in the world, especially in the small concerts or of some festivals in Europe especially, are playing or are using just plugins or are using just one person for the live presentation. No more amps directly to the console, and these bands are playing without amps, with a crowd involved, and just I think just is the drummer has the part microphone of these ones, but the other things are completely connected to the console with just one people. So many people say that this artificial intelligence will take jobs, but now if we are talking about for the live presentations, there's no more crowd involved in live presentation. It's just one people with a lot of tools handle all things related with our live presentations. So what is your opinion about now about this new wave to hero bands without amps and just plugins?
Look, I don't mind bands playing with their amps and stuff, but I like to see a band play live. Like I when Austere plays live, it's Mitch and I and two session musicians, like another guitarist and a bassist. And yeah, we will have sometimes a few extra guitars on the backing, or keyboards are always on the backing because we don't have a keyboard player live. But 95%, 96% of what the crowd hears is from the four guys playing live on stage. And I think that's the most important thing. Real amps, you know, I don't mind, if someone wants to use plugins for their guitar sound live, that's fine, and all these modeling boxes and Kempers and stuff. They sound, just as good nowadays. But I think as long as it's people, I don't like seeing. I've seen a few bands where it's like one guy playing guitar and then drums, other guitar, bass, keyboards on backing, and it doesn't work for me as a live thing. I like to see real music with real mistakes and stuff. But I don't know. That's the way the world is. I mean, most DJs aren't even doing anything. They they've got the whole set on their laptop in Ableton, and they just press play and then pretend to do stuff for the rest of it. And a lot of bands have. I know several very well-known bands who the keyboard player doesn't play anything live. He's not even plugged in. He's just miming because everything's on backing, and is what it is now. It's just the technology has got there, and that's where we are. But yeah, personally, I like live music. I like it to be loud. I like it to be a bit raw. I don't want it to sound exactly like the album.
Okay, I understand. So we are very close to enter this interview team. And now, what's your opinion about now these overwhelming releases per weekend? Because as you can see, there is 1,000 release. There is no 1,000. There is a 50 or 60 releases per weekend. It's
Mm.
impossible to follow all these releases for all these kind of even we are working as a media, and for us it's impossible to follow all these more than 50, 60 releases. For some bands are good, for other people it's not good because the music or the metal in general is too saturated with a lot of releases.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of the internet, the connected world we live in now is I mean, 30 years ago,
Mhm.
people would just put out rehearsal demo tapes and give them to their friends. But now every band that exists in the world has access to get their music out and online and the potential to be heard by billions of people. But yeah, when there's 100 new albums every Friday, like how can you even begin to listen to them? So it's bad in that a lot of releases get lost, I think, and a lot of albums that deserve more sort of appreciation will get lost because just the sheer number of them. And let's be honest, a lot of them are shit and are doing nothing new and are just copying stuff that's already been done better. Um, yeah, it's just, but it is what it is. What can you do? We're in 2025. We're connected 24 hours a day on our phones. I can upload a song from my phone right now, and in a couple of hours, it's on YouTube, and it's out there for the world to hear or whatever. So it's just the world we live in, and what can you do? You just I don't really go out and search for new music or find new music. Like people recommend me stuff, and I'll listen to it, but I'm not going through the weekly releases and listening to every one of them. It's very rare that I'll listen to new bands. I know what I like and I listen to that. But yeah, it is what it is, man. And I think for us, it's lucky that we sort of got popular when we did 15 years ago, because if Austere was releasing these albums today as a new band, maybe nobody would hear them because they're just getting lost in the sea of new releases. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, team, we are right the sad moment of this interview. I hope you enjoyed this interview like me. This new album's a great one. It's not like the first two. The first two that I hear for when you come back, but now this album is more stronger than the first two. It's more hard and it's like melodic death metal, as we spoke at the beginning. Congratulations on this new album. It's a great one. So perhaps you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metallica followers.
Yeah, thanks very much for the interview, man. It's been good. And thanks to everybody who, takes the time to hear the crap I have to say.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really hope we can get over there next year, 2026. We'll see. No promises, but we'd really love to. So I hope it can happen. And yeah, thanks again.